I definitely think it should be retained. And I'm not alone in this. All of the police chiefs across the country have said we should keep this gun registry because it's a useful tool. Here in York Region, Armand Labarge just recently stepped down as police chief. He did a fantastic job and has been much admired by many people. He's a strong supporter of the gun registry because it saves lives. Police tell us that 11,000 times per day the gun registry is used, because when police have to go into somebody's house, it's very helpful, and it may save lives if they know whether or not the person in that house owns a gun. So if all of the police want this to save lives, I don't see any reason at all to scrap it. It only costs $4 million per year across the whole country. That is not a large sum of money. But I also think that there are legitimate users of guns, not so much in our riding, but if you go into the countryside, farmers and hunters have the right to carry out that, and they are certainly not criminals. So we would retain the registry while at the same time making it more flexible and user-friendly for the farmers and fishermen and hunters across the country.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Saroya, you go.
I think the gun registry is all about the crime in the major Toronto metropolitan cities, Toronto, Montreal, BC, Calgary, among other cities. Most of the time, the handguns are the culprit of the situation. Illegal handguns are killing people. By banning the gun registry, it doesn't help the hunters, farmers, and among others, as John said. Originally, when we started this thing, we spent $1.2 billion on it, but I personally believe, as a taxpayer, it was a waste of money and continue to waste of money staying on the path. What we need to do is to work on the handguns, illegal handguns smuggled to this country. John, when I came to the country back in 1974, I rented, and we didn't have the key. It was such a safe, beautiful country. If the landlord was away from the house, the key would be sitting under a brick. It was this safe Toronto, beautiful Toronto. But all this thing happened, all this thing took place when the illegal smuggled guns started coming to the country. Even the OPP chief, Mr. Fantino, would say the same thing. What we need to do, we need to work on the handguns, put more policemen on the road, give more tools to the police to control those handguns. That is the culprit, not the long registry gun, which we put the farmers, hunters, etc. in jail or whatever the reason is. But we must work on the crime and reduce crime controlling the handguns in Toronto and other cities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saroya. Ms. Hawkins, you may begin.
I have to agree with Mr. McCallum that there are a lot of associations that use the long gun registry. I've got the BC Association of Police Chiefs, the Nova Scotia Association of Transition Houses, Provincial Nurses Coalition, Halifax Chief of Police. Quebec overwhelmingly supports licensing guns, and they don't think it's a problem. You license dogs, so why shouldn't you license a gun? It's an easy thing to do. Generally, people are concerned about gun control. Well, if you've got a long gun, you can saw it off. I mean, a gun is easier to use when you're upset than a fist fight to hurt somebody badly, and they need to be controlled. There are other ways to control guns. You know, people shouldn't be that upset in the first place. People need less stress in their lives. They need health care and education. They need a good home. There are things like I've heard of biometrics. You know, let only the person who can actually who actually owns the gun get it to work. There are ideas.
Okay, thank you very much. So you may start the public debate.
The bottom line is we need to control guns. Most of the incident, if not all of most of the incident are the handguns, which I saw one of the police report, the guns coming from the United States, they carved into the books and that sort of thing. People are finding many different ways to bring the guns to this country.
Bob, I totally agree with you that we have to try to stem the supply of handguns coming in from the United States. But at the same time, I think we have to do two other things. The police have multiple tools to fight crime. And one of them is to do what you said and stem the inflow of foreign guns. But I don't think it's a good idea to scrap the registry because, as Nadine said, police across the country, including York Regional Police, say it's a useful tool. They use it 11,000 times a day to save lives. I don't think there's any need to scrap it. In fact, that would be a bad move, which Stephen Harper is proposing. But I also think, to go back to something Nadine said, part of it is to get at the ultimate causes of crime, which have to do with living conditions of young people, whether they're out on the streets or engaged, whether they have decent housing and health and education. We have to work on that side. And one thing we are proposing is a major affordable housing program and a national housing strategy, so that one of the most fundamental things for families is to have a decent roof over their heads. And I think that kind of thing is also a part of the solution.
Absolutely. Look at it in our side for the last number of years with the GST cut or other tax cuts. The Conservative government have given each family about $3,000 a year, as well as the good point from the health side, and 6% increment in health funding coming up is in the last budget. Working with all those things and working with the police will bring the crime down. We simply disagree on the thing of registering long guns. It's not fair with the hunters, farmers, etc. Trying to talk this stuff in up north or the other part where these things are the daily tools. But I absolutely saying we need to work on it to do what we have to do, the safety for our kids, do what the measurement we need to do to control the guns.
Well, I think where we disagree, we agree on many things.
Yes.
I think where we disagree is on the gun registry, clearly, but also on priorities. Because the Conservatives, having spent so much money on corporate tax cuts and other things, have little left over to support families. And the side of this issue where we go to the ultimate causes of crime through supporting families, they don't have much money left over to do that after they do their corporate tax cuts in their mega prisons. So I think it's better to spend billions on hospitals and schools rather than billions on mega prisons, which is a U.S. system which has been shown not really to work.
I disagree on this one. This is what we have, the 6% increment in the health care to keep the people and bring them to the level. And 500,000 jobs were created with these tax cuts. We don't want to go back to the liberal theory that increasing tax would help.
We're not increasing tax on any small business or on any Canadian. As I said earlier, these jobs created in Canada are a good thing. But they were not because of Stephen Harper waving a magic wand. They were for a whole series of other reasons. Many of those reasons dating back to Liberal governments, by the way.
John, let's go back to Labour government in UK, United Kingdom. Is the Conservative government is cleaning the mess up there. Look what's going on in Greece, among other countries.
We're not a Labour party. They're cleaning up the mess of the Labour Party. Let's stay at home. Liberals came to power in 1993 after Brian Mulroney. We inherited a big, fat, juicy $42 billion Conservative deficit.
And
we cleaned it up.
Same time, you got all the GST. To get into power, you promised the scrap of GST.
That's changing the subject. I thought we were talking about deficits.
But the deficit, the GST brings the revenue in. The revenue in either bring the deficit up or reduce it down. It's not changing the subject. It's just that liberals would do anything to get into power, even if they have to say they're going to scrap this tax or scrap that tax. When they get into power, is a different situation. John and Yata.
My point is that we cleaned up the economic mess left by Brian Mulroney. We may have to clean up the economic mess left by Stephen Harper.
Look at John. We paid $40 billion Canadian debts.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Time is up. And take a short break, and we will be right back for the fifth round of debate.